Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here on March the 2nd, a great day for Texas independence, a beautiful day that we have for our Tennessee guests. I guess we ought to sing Old Rocky Top or something, is that right? You better be grateful that the people doing the baptizing weren't Baptist. Some of y'all laugh and know the difference. But times never change. As time goes by, we see what Sam Houston was probably saying today, were he here to talk. We are spending time in Austin discussing restrooms. Now, I'll tell you what Sam would tell you. He would tell you that there's probably no greater blessing for the 20th century and 21st century as the creation of indoor bathrooms. And we've been through the age of unitary bathrooms, and Texas ought to learn lessons from that. And maybe we wouldn't spend too much time on that. And President Hoyt, maybe we can talk more about education and the fact that we may need some more money down here for our schools, and getting back to the important issues. I was pleased to see Judge Pierce over here talking about his M1 rifle. I'm just glad we weren't talking about muzzle loaders. Some of you probably think that's probably what we were using. The ability to take one of those apart and then put it back together, I was always worried about whether it would shoot after I put it back together. And fortunately didn't have to do that in real life. It's important, though, for you who come here and become baptized Texans, that you, unlike a prior governor that I knew who said you couldn't really be a true Texan unless you were born here. Well, that's not true. The finest Texans and the Texas' greatest heroes were not born here. They were born in Virginia and Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia and South Carolina. I hate to bring that South Carolina up, but they were there too. South Carolina starts wars from time to time. Little old bitty state starts big wars. But we're delighted to be here and to have y'all join us in this celebration of one of the great people in not only Texas history, but in U.S. history. What Sam Houston did is best probably remembered for the victories that he won at the Battle of San Jacinto. But he had a long political career before that. I want to read you a couple of things that he said because I think it may be appropriate today. His political philosophy might work here again. It says, "I have ever been opposed to banks." For our banker friends on Wall Street, maybe you've heard of this. He was opposed to internal improvements by the general government. I'm not sure we want to go that far. He was opposed to the distribution of public lands among the states. Now, you might recall we're hearing some conversation about taking our national lands and distributing them to the states. I think he was on the right side of that argument back in the early 1800s. He was opposed to special monopolies. That's something that in Texas many governors have fought to oppose monopolies in our state, and I think it's been justified by the actions that were taken. He was opposed to protective tariffs. Some of you may have been hearing about the possibility of having a 20% tax on imports from Mexico. That was called a protective tariff. Also, it'll raise the price of your tequila. Now, of course, that won't have any impact on those Baptists and others here who've been baptized today. He was opposed to slavery, agitation, and disunion, and this was what he called his democracy. The importance here, of course, that I have is that we are going to have this speech today will be shorter than the baptismal ceremony, and I think that will be applauded by all. The times that we saw him rise to the occasion that I think are most important in his life was not the Battle of San Jacinto. That battle was fought and won. It was a great victory, one of the great victories in the Western civilization in which it acquired the independence of Texas, but it also led to what others would suggest the westward movement of the United States, the addition of Texas to the Union, the acquisition after the Mexican War with all of the territories existing all the way to California. The impact that that had on the development of our nation is clear and unquestioned. But he also was very outspoken about things that really we didn't listen here in Texas to very well. He talked about the Civil War. And what he said about that was to secede from the Union and set up another government would cause war. If you go to war with the United States, you will never conquer her, as she has the money and the men. If she does not whip you by guns, powder, and steel, she will starve you to death, and it will take the flower of the country, our young men. He says to declare war, a civil war, is inevitable and is near at hand. And when it comes to the descendants of the heroes of Lexington and Bunker Hill, they will be found to be equal in their patriotism and their courage and heroic endurance with the descendants of the heroes of Cowpens and Yorktown. For this reason, I predict the Civil War, which is now at hand, will be stubborn and of long duration. What he said on the most important occasion, I believe, of his life occurred when he was governor of Texas. And those of you who have been in the governor's mansion, I imagine more than a few have been there. If you have, raise your hands if you've been there. If you haven't been, you ought to go. As you walk in the front door of the governor's mansion, on the left-hand side there is what's Stephen F. Austin's desk in the library immediately after you enter the governor's mansion. And there's a fireplace there in the library, and it was at that place that Sam Houston, when being told that the secession convention had held its meeting, had voted to secede from the Union, and that he was faced with the real tribulation of whether to decide to stay with the Union or to join secession forces, received a telegram from then newly President Abraham Lincoln, in which in that telegram he says that I will send federal forces to help reinforce your efforts to keep Texas in the Union. At that time, Sam Houston decided against accepting that offer. He took the telegram and burned it in that fireplace there in the governor's mansion. And the next day, when the secession convention came to oust him from governor's office, he said as follows: "In the name of your rights and liberties, which I believe have been trampled upon, I refuse to take this oath. In the name of the nationality of Texas, which has been betrayed by the convention, I refuse to take this oath. In the name of the Constitution of Texas, I refuse to take this oath. In the name of my own conscience and manhood, which this convention would degrade by dragging me before it to pander to the malice of my enemies, I refuse to take this oath. I deny the power of this convention to speak for Texas, and I protest. Against all the acts and doing of this convention, I declare them to be null and void." He left the governor's office. He returned to this place here in Huntsville. He died in 1863. A horrible disappointment for a man who had fought to bring about this union. After leaving the governor's mansion, he traveled to Galveston. Along the way, many people demanded an explanation of his refusal to support the Confederacy. On April the 19th, from a hotel window, he told the crowd, "Let me tell you what is coming. After the sacrifice of countless millions of treasure and hundreds of thousands of lives, you may win Southern independence if God be not against you, but I doubt it. I tell you that while I believe with you in the doctrine of states' rights, the North is determined to preserve this union. They are not a fiery, impulsive people as you are, for they live in colder climates. That must have been the difference. But when they begin to move in a given direction, they move with the steady momentum and perseverance of a mighty avalanche. And what I fear is they will overwhelm the South. What he said on that occasion came true. Much of the suffering that occurred at that war, we still consider that a concern for healing. Had we listened to that wisdom of Sam Houston back then, what a different place we would be. It's important that we remember not just the battles that he won, but the fights that he lost, for the principles that he stood for, that were good then and they're good today. Happy birthday, Sam Houston.